Go ahead and kick it off. This is the Thursday, April 13th, 2023 meeting for the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. We are in order. First, we're going to, a little off the agenda, we're going to have a discussion about our timeline going forward. Since if you remember from last year, we're kind of entering uncharted waters because we were supposed to be close to wrapping up in April 2023, and we're clearly not there yet. So we're going to talk about what the next few months looks like. So Elena, would you go ahead and lead that?
Yeah, thanks. So taking a look at the timeline for the original contract and where we're actually at and projecting that out. So we're anticipating that the downtown master plan and the I-69 plan could get adopted before the comprehensive plan. The downtown master plan, they've already been through a few drafts and we're getting closer to narrowing that down and finalizing something. And so once that's ready to go, we'll go ahead and move forward with that. And then in the meantime, we thought we would change gears and focus on the I-69 plan and get through comments, start reviewing that, and then get that to a place where we're ready to move that on to get public input and present it to the different boards, and then refocus on the comprehensive plan. And so just wanted to put together this new timeline for you guys, give you an idea of what you can expect. So, we're not actually foreseeing that the comp plan could be adopted till the fall. And so we're trying to focus on the downtown plan, I-69 plan, get that adopted in the summer, and then the comp plan could come later in the fall. And that way, everything that's in the comp plan and the downtown plan can be included in the comprehensive plan. We're not having to make a lot of edits and updates and things like that. We're also looking at giving you guys a break, giving you a month off in July for the summer, just to go and do and what have you, but that's really up to you guys. But just wanted to present this kind of updated, tentative timeline to you guys and let you know that we're not going to try to rush anything. If anything, if there's a conflict with the contract that we have with DTJ in our timeline, we'll just go ahead and get all the deliverables from DTJ and then take as much time as we need to go over the comp plan and make it our own. And so that's what we're looking at right now, and just wanted to let you guys know. I know that there was some concerns about going too fast and trying to rush it. And we want to make sure everyone understands we are in no way wanting to rush anything, and we'll take as long as it takes. And so just wanted to give you guys some expectations moving forward as far as new project schedule, and see if you have any questions over this. We'll email this to you too. I just wanted to. James?
I have a question regarding looking at this where it says plan adoption. From that point, there's no time frame that you all thought about when if it gets adopted, then you would start, or you would start when that's adopted.
Yeah. So in the comprehensive plan, it's got to have recommendations that have timelines associated with them, and so it'll have priorities, high priority, medium priority, and low priority. So high priority will be 1 to 3 years, 2 to 5 years, and basically it'll have some timelines for implementing some of these recommendations. So that'll be in there, and I'll give you that. Any concerns about what you guys see on here? I know it extends your voluntary your voluntary commitment, but wanted to give you guys some more realistic expectations about what you could expect.
How does extending the timeline affect the budget so far as the consultants are concerned?
So we don't foresee it affecting the budget. Essentially, I know that once we get the deliverables and really there's no more need to have DTJ. Part of their contract is presenting that final comp plan to City Council, but staff can handle that part. So we feel confident there shouldn't be any impacts to the budget because of that. We may have to say goodbye to DTJ this summer and then keep going on without them and make changes to the plan as needed based on y'all's input.
Going back to when this all started, the initial resolution that appointed this committee said that we were to more or less adopt the plan by consensus before sending it on to planning and zoning, city council, whoever was supposed to be the next step in review, depending on which portion of the plan it was. That will have to happen at some point prior to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're discussing how to most efficiently handle that, whether it's breaking up into subcommittees to take on various chapters, or if we take up 2 or 3 chapters at a meeting and adopt those and then move on to something else. So we'll have to see, because a lot of it depends on when we're actually going to get that material from DTJ on a plan on that. But we're looking at that and trying to figure out a strategy. And if anybody has any thoughts or input on how we can best go through that consensus process, I'm all ears. So.
All right, well, that's it, we'll go back to the presentation. Thank you, and you, yeah. Just exit, there you go, that's good. All right, so today we're gonna look at the updated survey results. We, extended that 2 weeks to get some more feedback, and we actually got over 50 more responses. We got a lot closer to our demographic goals too. So we want to thank everyone for all their help in pushing that out and getting additional results. If you remember at the last meeting, we went over some of the revised guiding principles. Earlier in March, we did some presentations or project updates to City Council and P&Z. And then back in February, we reviewed the future land use classifications and housing study recommendations. So today, in front of you, your packet, you've got the agenda, you've got the minutes from the last meeting, you've got those revised future land use designations. You've also got updated future land use map. Now, if you notice on the printed version, it shows a lot of green. That's supposed to be yellow. It's just a printing error because of the color. But when we email it to you, those colors should be correct. So if it's a little confusing, the printed version, don't worry. We're going to ask DTJ to break this map into quadrants and zoom in, so you get a more, we can actually go, neighborhood area by neighborhood area and review those in more detail. I know right now it's all zoomed out, but we'll get some zoomed in quadrant versions to send to you guys as well.
Could you say that again? I didn't.
Yeah, so on the future land use map, this is the overall map, but it might be a good idea to get to break it up into quadrants, so like northeast, southeast, with some more detail in each one to make it easier for you guys to review. And so we're going to ask DTJ to provide that exhibit for us, and so you can get a more zoomed in look at the neighborhood level of where the land uses stop and start.
And can you also clarify, some of the colors are so close together, like the mixed use and suburban residential, it's difficult to know what they're indicating, at least for me.
Yeah, they did mention that, like, hey, is there a better color besides this? And so we'll let them know if there is some little, if they can make it more clear or distinct.
And put street names.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
But yeah, definitely differentiating. The ones next to each other are very, very subtle shading.
Okay.
And those are important issues.
So we've got, agenda minutes, land use map, land use applications, the I-69 plan. We don't expect you guys to go over this in a week. We want you to take plenty of time. We just want to go ahead and get it in front of you so you can start reviewing it. So this is meant to just be kind of an introduction today to say, here's the plan. Let us know if you have any questions. We also, at your place, we provided printouts of the different charts that you're going to see for the housing survey. We also have the raw data that we'll share with you, and we'll post it online, and we'll email this to you as well, and we'll email you a copy of the project timeline. We just wanted to go over everything that was in your packet today. So at our last meeting, I told you we had 302 responses for the housing survey, and we were kind of short on some of our demographics, so we extended that. And with your help, we got over 50 more responses. We're much closer to our demographics as far as age range and minorities and even students, so we feel a lot better about that now. So thank you so much for all your help and getting the word out and helping us get that feedback. And so we're going to go over these different responses. Just highlight, stress. If you have any questions, please stop me along the way, or I'm going to keep on going.
I would just, at that number, 355, that's total for the whole city of Nacogdoches. That's the only, that many people have done that survey.
That's survey number 4, yes, sir.
355 out of what? What about population in that?
I'm trying to think, there's a sample size, so based on our total population, they provided sample sizes that they would like to hit. Our population right now is around 32,000, and so based on that, I think the number that we were looking to try to average for each one is anywhere from like 300 to 400 responses based on that. I can't remember offhand, I apologize, but
I guess I'm kind of like concerned that only 355 people filled out that survey in our community.
yeah, 300, yeah, the 355, yeah. If you look at the,
Because, well, there again, on my part, is the apathy of our community of not wanting to get involved, not even for a survey.
yeah.
So we have to change that. I mean, I don't know how we do that, but we have to change that. We have to have more community involved, way much more.
I think some of this may be a result of survey exhaustion. People are tired of taking surveys.
Yeah.
And this one had a lot more detail as far as the questions that made you think a little bit. And some people, but yeah, no, most definitely. That's always a challenge.
So just to clarify, of our population is 32,000
Approximately.
and just under, 32,147. And the people under 18 are just under 20% of that, so that's 24,000 roughly, that's a lot of people that are not filling it out.
All right, so question number 1 asked about the overall quality of the housing stock in Nacogdoches in regards to appearance, cost, property maintenance. And so essentially the overall feedback was that it was fair. A small percentage said excellent, and then the good and poor was about the same. So overall theme was fair in regards to housing quality. Second question was, how is the quality of housing, how's it changed over the past 5 to 10 years? The big takeaways that we saw was that it was staying the same or somewhat getting worse. And I think that speaks to age of housing and just general property maintenance, which is something that we've been actually working on. In the past few years, we've increased our code enforcement, so we've actually had to see dramatic increases in property maintenance and things like that. So we're hoping this trend is on the up. Question number 3 asked, whenever you're considering housing in neighborhoods, to identify a strength or weakness for Nacogdoches today. You can see that it's mixed across the board, but generally there was a lot of categories that were either overwhelmingly a weakness or neutral. And then you can see those broken down here. Question number 4 asks about the importance of protecting and preserving existing neighborhoods on a scale of 1 to 10. And so the average was about 7.6. So the majority of the community felt that preserving neighborhoods was a high priority for Nacogdoches. The next question asks about how important is homeownership in regards to creating sustained local housing market. Overall was 8, so the majority of respondents felt that was important. Number 6 asks about the kind of impact each of the following criteria of new residential development have on the community. And so you see that broken down here. It goes from single family, townhomes, and then has more increased density for the different housing types as you go down. And so it looks as if single family homes were seen as the most positive for new residential development. And then you see mixed use development comes in second, and then townhomes and age restricted housing is about third and fourth as far as top priorities or most impact. 7 asks about the attributes that make a residential community appealing. And you see overwhelmingly was, the overwhelming theme was affordability, and then things of convenience, so proximity to work, pedestrian friendly, adequate landscaping, and then the ones that received the least were common open space, historic character, and parking options. So you kind of see the range of what people selected as far as communities that were appealing. 8 asked about if you supported the proposed goal as stated in the comprehensive plan for housing, and overwhelmingly the consensus was yes. Question 9 asked about ranking the following statements as far as high or low priority, and so you see there's a lot of responses across the board, but it looked like one of the more key takeaways was encouraging a variety of quality housing types to address income levels. It's kind of cut off, but to address, income levels and where people were at different stages of their, of their life. Number 10 asked about, rank the following as far as community needs from high to low priority. And so overwhelmingly, the biggest one was, 44% was jobs, followed by deferred maintenance. And then when you look at low priorities, downtown reinvestment and housing supply. So you see there's some variety in the responses. Number 12 asked about commercial and industrial areas, identifying strengths or weaknesses for our community today. And you can see that as far as like a great weakness, or overall, you look at the questions that a mix of available shopping options was seen as a weakness versus a strength, but then you see access to everyday goods and services, character of commercial areas like the appearance, and the opportunities for new commercial development were some of the higher strengths as far as things that we need today. Number 13 asked what kind of impact each of the following types of development would have on Nacogdoches as a whole. And so you can see it does vary widely, but there was a large percent that said local retail was really something that would have a high impact on Nacogdoches. So that's not a surprise. As far as overarching themes, destination retail, and family entertainment, those were also some of the top things that came out, which we weren't surprised about that either because we've heard that a lot during this process. What kind of impact would each of the following types of development have on downtown Nacogdoches? So this is specific to downtown. And you can see that there was a lot of positive responses for family entertainment, recreation and outdoor entertainment, local resources, local retail, nightlife entertainment, and destination retail. Those were some of the most common themes, as well as hotels, so places for people to stay overnight if they want to in the downtown area. Number 15 asks about the attributes that make a commercial development appealing to you. And so the key takeaway here, we saw the most responses as for like type of variety of businesses, so just different types of shopping, design of buildings, so something that's attractive, appealing, locally owned businesses, and then pedestrian friendly and close proximity to home or work. Those were kind of the bulk of the attributes that were appealing to respondents. Number 16 asked about the stated goal for economic development, if that was something that gets supported or not. Overwhelmingly, almost 90% did support that goal. Number 17 asked about ranking the priority following statements. And so the number one highest ranking was continually strive to attract new industry, commerce, and employment opportunities for the city of Nacogdoches, followed by promote the retention of existing industry of commerce and employees. So that tells us is, we always want to strive to attract new business while not hurting the businesses that we have here today. All right, and these are just the demographics. So when we have these surveys, we ask people where they live, their demographics. Most of the respondents do live in Nacogdoches, and they own a home in Nacogdoches. And so it was good to see that most of our respondents were actually local. And then looking at the map, a lot of people live in zone 4, which I can't remember. I think that's like, I guess either the northeast or northwest ward. But we'll get a copy of that map and include it in your packet too. And then for demographics, overwhelming majority was white, and then followed by Black, African American, and Hispanic. And as far as age demographics, and this is a common theme for most of our surveys. Age of respondents was 65 to 74, followed by 55 to 64, and then 35 to 44. So we did actually see more respondents of younger ages in this survey than we have seen in some of the previous ones.
I wanted to go back to 219 on the, I own a home in Nacogdoches, said 65.36%. Is that of the population of Nacogdoches, or does that include the town?
These are the respondents. So the people who actually responded to the survey, they own a home, or 65% own a home in Nacogdoches.
Okay, so my question would be, of that 65 to 36, how many, do you have a number of how many homeowners responded to this?
That's what this is. So that's that question. I own a home in Nacogdoches. That's that 65%.
But I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out how many of that 65%, how does that translate into the number of families that own homes in Nacogdoches?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
I would just be curious. I'm just curious.
Oh, you have it? I can get it right now. Okay, Tori's gonna work on that.
how that translates, that 65%
Yeah.
translates to the number of homeowners.
So the census, shows that a much smaller proportion of people in Nacogdoches own their own homes. And it's like 32%, I can look it up right now, but, own their home, but this
I
is,
just wanna see what that number looks like.
so one is the survey.
So for this survey, the 64% was a total of 198 homeowners.
On there, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're asking for individual responses, I apologize, I misunderstood.
So 37% of the housing is owner occupied, 37.8% in Nacogdoches. So it's interesting, so you have a 2-to-1
Well, and
respondents.
is that based on 2010 or 2020 census data?
It should be 2020, let me look and see. It's the current quick fact, so, yeah, it's, yeah, it actually may be the ACS update, because some of these have
That 5-year
2022.
TV survey, which is that's actually, I think it's 1% of the population that they poll for that too.
Well, but it's been consistent, 37.8% is our home ownership rate, which is terrible for very unusual. It's much less than the state. And Ed, I think as you pointed out before, because there's so much home ownership in the county as opposed to in the city.
Right outside the city limits.
And that's something we're probably gonna wanna, talk about. I mean, if we want to have home ownership in the city, or is that what we wanna do, is push them all out to the county? I mean, it's a big question, to me it is.
So we also got updated future land use categories. We're gonna try to get a red line version from them to show exactly what changes were made. So I'm hoping to get that to you by the end of the week. I apologize for not having it today, but I'll email that to you by Friday, so you can see line by line, word for word, exactly the changes that were made. But essentially, we asked them to at least represent on the map and provide some more detail on the distinction for the residential types, so suburban residential versus mixed use or mixed residential. And so they did provide some more detail for that. They actually added a mixed use category, which was requested last time, to provide some more detail for what that might look like. And so, Ken, I'm just gonna turn it back over to you now.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions, any other questions about the survey? Like I said, we'll email this to you along with the raw data, and we'll get it posted online. And but in the meantime, I mean, if you get a chance to look at it over the weekend, you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email, and we'll get you as much information as we can. One of the things I'm gonna email you has that raw total number, James, so you can see the number of individual responses for each one.
I do have a question. How is DTJ gonna take this data and incorporate it into the comprehensive plan? Do they have a-
So all of the survey results will be included as an appendix, and then they'll have, graphs that kind of provide overviews of different responses, but the input's gonna be included, it'll include the survey responses, the workshops that we've done, feedback from you guys, feedback from council and P and Z, so it's gonna be a culmination of all of that together.
So the actual survey information will be part of the material, okay,
Yeah, so people can go back and reference it if they want to.
okay. All right. Interesting, thank you. Moving on, we're gonna talk about the revised draft of the future land use plan categories. And also, we've got the map here. I know, the map would probably benefit from those of us taking this and home and looking at it, based on our knowledge of our own neighborhoods and saying, okay, does this make sense for my neighborhood or not? And really looking at it on a street-to-street level, to see where there might be some, either mistakes or lines that aren't where they need to be. And that's one of the reasons why we're talking about getting a more zoomed in map, hopefully with some street identifiers, at least off the main thoroughfares, that would assist you in doing that. But I think that's something that over the next couple of weeks, hopefully we can all take a look at, see if there's any issues, and then we can bring those back to the next meeting. But for today, I wanted to look at, and if you see anything today, feel free to bring it up, but wanted to mainly stick to the revised categories for the future land use. And I know the last one we saw was a lot rougher than this. This has clearly been, this looks like it's from the final plan almost. Do you have it broken down by the actual edits that were made?
Yeah, I don't have the red line today.
Okay.
They're still working on it. I can actually probably do it myself, just go and look and
Okay.
and create the red line. I'm gonna get that to you guys by Friday. I do apologize, but I did wanna note that the mixed use category is brand new.
Mhm.
And then for the commercial, we had them provide some more detail on what regional retail meant, what neighborhood retail meant, what business employment meant, some more language for that. And then, even on the residential, we asked them to break that down into more detail as far as like what those housing types were and the character of those areas. So, but I will get you guys the line on Friday.
And I know the discussion last time, we spent a lot of time talking about I think suburban residential. And you said mixed use is brand new.
Yes.
Is that what would kind of fill the planned development kind of category under our current zoning code? Is that what that would?
Yeah, I think mixed use would be appropriate for planned developments, or, maybe even, could help support a brand new zoning district for mixed use. Instead of having a PD, you could just request a zoning district. And so, but this is meant to provide another alternative for a true kind of commercial and residential mixed use. As we talk about in here, we talk about mixed residential, which, is a variety of housing types, but could include neighborhood scale commercial uses, whereas mixed use is more of a half and half, or more of a, predominantly commercial with residential mixed in.
Okay. The new definition of for both suburban and mixed residential, any questions or concerns with those? Just, I know everybody's just only had a little bit of time to look at this, so we can get more into the details next time if you have any questions.
Yeah, we did ask them to kind of highlight that suburban residential was predominantly traditional single-family development, to highlight that, so it stood out, so, that it's clear that this really is meant to be more of our traditional single-family type of housing, and then the mixed residential is meant to be more of the mix of densities with, townhomes and small apartments and things like that, so we try to provide some more distinction and clarity in there for those.
I know we're gonna talk about it in the future, and not now, but I think it's important to point out, it looks like we have dropped out the historic preservation part. Is it in there anywhere? I don't see it, but maybe it is. And the other is the assumption that low to medium density is in the suburbs. And that's something I think we'll have to have a discussion about in the future.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that, Kathy.
That low density is in the suburbs. It's outside of downtown or outside of, and one of the characteristics of, or no, it could be in the city limits, but like Kenbrook or whatever is low density, but we have areas surrounding downtown that are low density neighborhoods that actually add to the character and that are not necessarily have to be a historic overlay.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I don't want to discuss it now, I'm just putting a placeholder in it. So we'll have a discussion in the future, a more in-depth discussion.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. So, one of the main changes from this one to the previous one was before it just had existing residential and then future residential, and they changed it and then had the suburban and mixed residential subcategories. So we were like, hey, can we just change that and have just suburban and mixed residential, that have a separate exhibit that identified those neighborhoods that, needed additional protections as a separate, so that it wouldn't get all convoluted with the future land use map. So you're gonna be seeing a separate exhibit that has those neighborhoods that are identified as, hey, these are some context-sensitive areas that are in need of additional protections or some sort of additional design standards to protect them from encroachment on, types of development that aren't compatible, and also include key gateways and some of those identifying features.
That needs to be on our future land use map, though, not something.
Not PE, so you don't wanna see that on a separate, like supplemental exhibit?
It can be both, but it
Yeah.
needs, our future land use map needs to include all of that. And also, there is, I'm gonna restate it again, I think this will be really something important to talk about. Do we only think of low-density housing as further away from downtown? So, you know, there's a question, many downtowns where all this business is, you know, we're talking about businesses being there, but really, in essence, several people have talked about our downtown is actually North Street, because we have businesses all throughout North Street, and so downtown may be a separate kind of theoretical placement for our particular town of Nacogdoches. We may want to concentrate on that being, you know, historic and whatever, whereas commercial, maybe that whole strip. I'm just throwing this out as a question. And so neighborhoods, you know, we might think of suburban or low density as branching out from North Street as opposed to, which is why we see like encroachment on Pecan Orchard. You know, it's something to think about in our future land use map. So years ago, you know, when I was younger, our downtowns were commercial centers. And so we have it's like we have two separate ways of thinking about downtowns. But our commercial center is not our downtown, and should it be or should it not be? Our commercial center is North Street. I mean, we have all our restaurants, we have all of our, you know, we have businesses, that is our commercial, that's where all it's so expensive to buy property there, but you get 3 blocks away and it's not as expensive. So as we're envisioning housing and all the other things on this future land use map, are we actually thinking about distance from downtown, or are we thinking about distance from the commercial, our commercial North Street? Yeah. So it's something we've never talked about as a group, and I think it would be very valuable to talk about that and think through that. So, and that has to do with housing and where's low density, where's high density housing.
So would that mean you'd be more inclined to put the higher density closer to the commercial center, or?
Normally, that's the assumption that this kind of thing makes. I don't know. I mean, I just think it's something we as a group need to think about.
Okay.
You know, it's just.
On the bottom, let me see where the
Topic.
edge, yeah, no, right there, good, thank you.
Is the term suburban, is that like a term of art for planning people?
Term of what?
Is that like something that,
I don't know how it could be.
you know, is that when they use the word suburban, do they just mean single-family homes?
No, it's really a character area, so
Okay.
it's like low density, not as, you know, tall buildings, more spread out.
Okay.
And so it does include single family, but it can include other housing types and commercial areas too, but not as compact, more sprawl type development.
But it does include businesses, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe that word is tripping me up a bit because it seems
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of antiquated, maybe. Like it's
Yeah.
out of like oh, this is the suburbs and it's
Yeah.
1963.
Right,
And
right,
they're
right.
it's,
building all these cookie cutter houses just outside of town, you know?
Yeah, right, right.
yeah, it's very common nomenclature, so like downtown would be considered urban, because it's very compact,
Mhm.
high density, concentration, whereas, you know, Ken Brooks, those areas, that's more suburban type development.
But but see, even that response says downtown is our compact, and I think it's worth us all discussing, you know, because you're right, Ken, I mean, to me, it's the old sixties and seventies, your downtown was your center of commerce. And as you moved further out, you became suburban, which is the low density, and it throws me too, Ken,
Yeah.
that,
Now,
this term suburban.
Yeah, the purpose and character of downtown has really changed over the years, from being primary commerce to being more of a destination, tourist attraction, more different types of development, and a lot of that's because of the way that it's built, you know. So it's definitely, you know, evolved, for sure.
Right, and people have protected it. So I just think that's a discussion we're gonna wanna all engage in, I think, sometime.
Is it anything to tie suburban areas to lot size or size? Yeah.
I'm with you. That's
That's
kind of
good.
what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Is there some parameter that
Yeah.
you're getting at? Like, isn't that what you're asking for? Like, is there some
Yeah.
sort of specific
Yeah,
parameter
I think of
to
suburban
help
areas.
us
as-
define it, as
yeah,
opposed
not-
to it being
Yeah.
as ambiguous as it is?
Well, I don't know, when I think of suburban, I think of a big city outside the city limits,
Mhm.
not inside the city limits. And if we're saying suburban from downtown to where I live on South Street, am I suburban?
Yeah,
I'm still
right.
within the city.
Right,
But we don't have the things on the south side like the north side of town. So I guess we could be considered suburban since we don't have that close.
Yeah, auto-oriented, you know, it's more spread out development type is suburban, so like even sections of North Street, you know, would probably be considered suburban, because, it's not as compact, it's not as walkable. So it's based more on, you know, character and development pattern than it is necessarily land uses. You know, suburban, you have larger lots, development's more spread out. You have to drive more, it's more auto-oriented, whereas compact tends to be more walkable. You don't need as much parking because there's homes in close proximity to businesses, things like that. So it's just, yeah, it definitely is something that you can see, for sure. You can feel it.
So, and right now, this would correlate in our current zoning code to like R1, R2, R3,
Mhm.
would all be in suburban
Yes.
residential, right? Okay.
Ken, do you think it would be better to, instead of using that term, say low density, low to medium density residential? Just knock that whole term out? I mean, it's kind of
Yeah, I mean, that's,
interesting thought.
I mean, it's right there in the brackets or the parentheses.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I assume that they call it suburban because that's what they all call it.
Yeah. In the
I
planning
mean,
world, suburban is
yeah.
used for low, medium density
Yeah.
development, yeah.
Okay. But it, you know, to me, it doesn't, you know, I think of like, we're talking about like Katy, Texas or something.
Yeah.
Which maybe not even suburban anymore, I don't know, but, you know, a smaller town outside of a large city, you know, which we're not. We don't, doesn't really fit here, obviously, so. But I understand where they're coming from.
Do they take into account the size of property a person owns in that suburb thing?
I'm sorry, I think you could
Do they
do,
take into account to like the size of the property you own? Like, if you live in the city, if you live in the north side of town, you have a smaller lot, but if you live in the south side, like I have a big city lot.
Yeah.
So does that have anything to do with it at all?
yeah, our zoning districts, like R1, R2, R3, they're all dictated by lot size. So like R1 is a bigger lot size, and R2 is smaller lot size. And so, yeah, it's definitely, the size is dictated by the zoning, for sure.
Paul, were you thinking that, you know, later on when we get into the future land use map, we think about it in terms of lot size, or I'm just following up on your,
Yeah, I think about it in terms of lot size and distance from Hope to city, the
Right.
city limits.
yeah. I assume that'll be part of our discussion in the future when we
Yeah.
look at the future land use map.
Yeah, I think we might consider maybe, I don't know, I think it might be more useful to say low, medium density and then medium, high density instead of calling them mixed and suburban. I think that's intuitively easier to understand. But that's just me, I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
Makes more sense to me to have low, medium density than suburban.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that a lot of people will make the suburban here in Nacogdoches, to be honest with you. And then see that in a lower small town.
They'd be confused if they just looked.
Exactly.
I don't mean to complicate the issue anymore, but I just wonder if, when you look at the description, the suburban residential doesn't contemplate any type of commercial, whereas the mixed residential actually contemplates some, well, neighborhood scale mixed use commercial is allowed along collector and high intensity roadways. So at some point, just it's gotta be addressed,
Yeah.
just exactly what commercial can be anticipated to fall in there.
No, sure, so retail follows rooftops, and the idea is that, you know, these more dense areas could support more local retail, or local oriented businesses, just that would support the immediate area. It wouldn't be your auto-centric development, so you wouldn't see a Walmart in there, or something that required a lot of parking, or things like that, something that's more compatible with, or low impact. But are you looking like examples, or?
Well, yeah, like say, a convenience, a convenience store, I mean, I'm just asking, I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking, because I think the danger is that we're discussing the residential classification, but we haven't gotten into just what commercial can we anticipate will crop up in there. And I'm just
Good points.
trying to contemplate down the road what could be presented as a problem, you know, or as a.
I know in the current future land use map, the way that the planning and zoning uses it is if somebody comes in with a zoning change
Exactly.
and they're in a residential area, they're gonna go, well, what's it say, you know, we think this is gonna be in the future? And if it says residential, then that's a strike against the zoning change, right?
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
you gotta make a case for it, like, cause
Right.
that's not really what we planned on using it for, why should we do it? Whereas if it did have a commercial, or if it was a potentially a mixed residential, future land use, and that, whatever the commercial, maybe it was a salon or something, that was gonna be in a home-like structure that wasn't like a big strip mall. Maybe that would fit into that use, but that's typically how I've seen it used, is you come in with a planned future use in a area that's zoned something different. Does it fit in with that future intention for that area? You know, well, if it's along North Street, it might be zoned residential right now, but we're saying eventually that's probably all gonna be commercial, basically. So, that's kind of the idea. So yeah, there does need to be cause if you put a suburban residential, color, you know, if you color it green or yellow, whatever it ends up being, then you're basically restricting commercial development from that area in the future. Unless there's a really good reason
Right.
to disregard it.
And that's interesting because in our survey that we just went over, a lot of the great weaknesses related to a desire spaces. So,
Yeah.
Just
we're
not in my
perpetuating the same
backyard.
problem.
Yeah.
A lot of the feedback that we've heard is people would really like to be able to walk to a place and grab lunch, or walk to a place to get a gallon of milk, or walk, not have to drive across town, to access many services. And so this would be like an example of, on the map, you may have suburban residential shown, all the way to like a major street. Well, the idea is that major street, the perimeter could be appropriate for some commercial, while the interior is residential neighborhoods, so almost creating like a buffer between these neighborhoods and major streets and things like that. We actually have a neighborhood retail zoning district, it's B1. It's called local business. That's where we have zoning for more neighborhood-oriented, less auto-centric lane uses. So, for example, restaurants are allowed, but not with a drive-through, and things like that. So that could be something that could fit into that category.
When you say we have that, you mean you're proposing it?
No, in our zoning ordinance, we have
Oh, you do?
a neighborhood business district, B1, for lower impact commercial uses that are appropriate and close to neighborhoods.
You have an example of, where is that? Is that currently,
Yes, so there's, you see some of that in the Shawnee area where you've got some hair salons, some smaller convenience stores, little pocket, smaller businesses. You see some of that located along the perimeter of Colonial Hills. You see some of that located along the perimeter of, trying to think, there's an area that we were looking at the other day with someone it's actually located along the loop, but it backs up to a single-family neighborhood, so its own neighborhood business, even though, it's located along a major street, because we knew that there was going to be an impact. So it's really for areas that butt up to residential, single-family, where maybe you don't want homes facing that major street, but you want some sort of buffer in between. Hope that makes sense.
So today, we're just having I'm just clarifying this, we're just having a discussion about this. We're not confirming that we accept these categories, or that we don't accept these categories, or that that is correct, because we were told no decisions are being made today. It's just having a
We know you guys
presentation.
haven't had a long time to review it, so we just wanted to introduce it, answer initial questions, or clarification that you might have, and then give you guys more time to dive into it.
And just to clarify, so the higher density is gonna be the orange, or potentially, I guess, the gray mixed use. That's where you would see like apartments or other type.
I think that's good.
Well, or wouldn't the mixed residential, medium, high density,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't that's the orange, the orange,
Yeah.
is that what you just said, orange or
Yeah,
gray?
orange and gray,
Yeah,
I was
okay,
thinking.
okay.
There's not much gray though.
Right.
I mean, there really is very little, honestly.
And this is the DTJ's proposal, correct? Okay, and maybe we'll, as we see, it's hard without the streets and to look at the different
Yeah,
colors.
we'll have them add that to the overall map too, as well as the ones in the version.
If you have a computer, you could zoom in on the PDF pretty well. I mean, it still doesn't have the street names, but you could see the outline of the satellite image underneath. It kind of helps a little bit if you zoom in, but but it would help if the street names were on this.
Something else that I would point out, this may not be the appropriate time to try to resolve it, but it appears that there's some of the red commercial areas that have been designated here, I'm pretty sure have some existing single-family homes that are within those.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, when this is presented to the public and those residents go, wow, what's fixing to be built on either, what kind of commercial enterprise is fixing to pop up here next to me? And again, just curious how that might be addressed.
Right, exactly, that's why I'm looking at some of these, wait, I think I know that particular area, and I'm not.
Yeah, and you'll see, we have a lot of non-conforming uses here in town, where you have single family, that was built back in the fifties and sixties and before we even had zoning.
Right.
And now they're grandfathered in, you know, especially in and around our downtown area, along North Street, even along West Main, East Main. You see homes right on, you know, West Main, because they were built back in the day. And so that's something that we, you know, challenge, you know, this challenge all the time.
Right.
But yeah, this map is definitely gonna be part of that public input that we'll share, so the general public will have an opportunity to review, provide comment, and feedback on this as well.
Well, and we have to
Yeah,
provide
you guys.
comment, I mean,
Yeah.
because there are
You guys
things that I
are the public.
totally disagree with, that I can see right off the bat. But that's another discussion for the future time when we have, you know. And just like our current future land use map, I mean, it just says residential, so, I don't know if we want to. So for example, you know, just, all of this green area just says anything from single-family homes to duplexes and townhomes and all that, and there are all kinds of duplexes out there that aren't even duplexes, that are dorms.
This definition of suburban residential is very close to our single family
Right,
that we have now.
right.
And so if that's not the, you know, desire of the committee, then we can absolutely have them. be
No, I
managed.
mean, just, then you have zoning beyond it, I mean,
And I think that's why it'd be valuable for everybody to take some time, look at this, look at the different neighborhoods you're
That's right.
familiar with, and come back with comments on concerns you might have. And that's another tough thing. It's gonna be tough to identify without like a grid or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, I can tell the parts of town of where one street is
Yeah.
and another street, you know, it's kind of hard.
Is there a way to put a grid on it?
I think so.
Like A, B, C on the top and numbers on this,
Yeah.
like old street maps that we used to use before
I
we
think
all
it's a good
started using
idea.
our phones?
Okay.
and you did say you were gonna give us like several pages of it, right? So, and we're zoomed in on it, and,
With more street names and.
right. So we look forward to that.
Yeah, that would be helpful, because then you could go, well, you know, it's like Battleship or something, that like B2 and B3.
Yeah.
And then we know, well, we're all looking at the same thing.
We do have those on our big, you know, 24 by
Right.
36 maps that we have printed, but, so we may not be able to print you something like that, but we definitely create a PDF.
Yeah.
And try to get as much as we can.
Yeah, that would be fine. Okay. All right, well, please take your time reviewing those, and we will, next meeting, we will have a more, an in-depth discussion over any comments. Let's see. Do we want, the other thing we had on our agenda was to introduce the I-69 study, because that's gonna be our next, focus, while we're waiting on the, upcoming draft of the comprehensive plan. Do you want to talk about it, or do you
Yeah,
want?
the only thing that I wanted to know is that the future land use plan is also reflected in this I-69 corridor plan. So you'll see, it's broken down by sections, and it'll have existing land use and future land use. So it gives you an idea of what's there today versus what's projected. And then, you'll see on page, so on page 100, they're still working on they're working with engineering on the utility needs assessment, mobility and access infrastructure assessment, so that part's still pending. It's much more in-depth, than some of these other sections. I just wanted to know if that's something that they're working on our engineering department with, so that's coming, but as soon as it's ready, we'll share that with the group as well. Just wanted to highlight those things.
We will, I anticipate we're gonna take at least 2 meetings to go through this,
At least.
depending on the comments we have. And, input from members of the committee. So, I would like like to get into it, start at the next meeting, but we'll see how many comments we have on the future land use, because I would like to get to that first before we dive into this.
And if you guys have any neighborhood groups that you want us to present this information to, you can have, staff has, we'd be more than happy to come to a HOA meeting or neighborhood association meeting and get feedback and comments, just let us know. Or if you guys wanna do that on your own, we're more than happy to take that feedback too, just don't hesitate to reach out. So our next meeting is May 11th, and then we move in June, and we were looking at giving you guys a break in July. That's totally up to you guys. I think the downtown committee is gonna take a break in June, just to let everyone, make some plans and any conflicts, but that was our initial idea.
I want to be sensitive to the time that everybody's put into this, because this has been a long process. So, I think we can take some time off, I would like to, during the summer, but I think part of that's gonna come down to what we've got back deliverable-wise from DTJ to review, so. And I don't know, we can have a discussion when we get that back. I think we could probably come up with a timeline at that point on how many meetings it's gonna take us to actually review that product and vote on it. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts on that process, or? Not yet? Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll all have opinions shortly once we see it. Do we have anything else that needs to be discussed today?
7th.
Okay. Anything? No? Anybody else? No? Okay. Well, I don't wanna, no need to sit here. You all have homework, so we can go home and start doing that. I appreciate your time. We'll see y'all in May 11th, you said?
Yes, May 11th.
Okay. All right. Everybody have a good week. Rest of you.